is what you don't like. So if you don't mind, let me unpack this text. Let me unravel it. Let me walk around in it and share with you what I see in it, and I'll soon take my seat. And I just want to highlight the movements of the text. This is a fluent text. It is moving. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time. I'm just going to go with the ebb and flow of the text and see what God is going to say to us. And the first movement in the text is that a predicament is mentioned. Yeah, Paul had gone to the third heaven where he had been shown visions and revelations that no mortal man or woman had ever seen before. And now he has come down from the mountain of ecstasy to the valley of the reality of his pain and agony. And Paul says when he came back down to earth, he said, I was confronted with a predicament. And when you look at this predicament, two things will jump out at you. Number one, it was sensually irritating. He says in verse 7, a thorn in the flesh was given to me. A thorn in the flesh. That word thorn literally means a sharp, stake-like, splinter-like object, if you will. He speaks metaphorically by describing his condition as being, pastor, like someone taking a stake and driving it into his flesh. He said a thorn in the flesh was given to me. Now, there's a lot of speculation out there as to what this thorn in the flesh might have been. Some speculate that his thorn in the flesh might have been some human personalities, that Paul had some human haters in Corinth who were dogging him and criticizing him every chance that they got. For you see, they were suggesting that Paul was not a full apostle because he was not one of the original 12. And so maybe his thorn in the flesh might have been some human haters that were hating him for general purposes. Have you ever met folk like that? You've never done anything to them, but they just hate you just because they can. Others speculate that his thorn in the flesh might have been his own sense of shortcoming and limitation. For you see, they criticized Paul on two fronts. First, they criticized him on the basis of his appearance. For you see, scholars suggest that Paul was not known to have been a handsome man, but history suggests he might have been a short, bald-headed man with some kind of facial contusion. And they say of him that his appearance is weak. Others suggest that they were criticizing him not just on the basis of his appearance, but they were criticizing him on the basis of his preaching. They say, well, he's a good writer, but he can't preach. And so maybe Paul's thorn in the flesh was this constant criticism that he was meeting every day. Others speculate that his thorn in the flesh might have been a besetting sin in his life, some weakness that Paul was not able to overcome, while others suggest that his thorn in the flesh was more likely an ophthalmic issue, some kind of irritating issue with his eyes. Well, the truth is, we really don't know what his thorn was. And it's really not important that we know what it was, but whatever it was, it bothered him. Whatever it was, it caused him to bleed. Whatever it was, it caused him to live with pain. And the paradox about it all is that God permitted him to have it. May I say, child of God, in this day where everybody's trying where we're hearing the main thrust of the gospel today is everybody supposed to be healthy and everybody is supposed to be wealthy. I don't have nothing against prosperity, but we need to put it into balance, because the truth of the matter is that every now and then God will allow the child of God to experience a set of painful and unpleasant circumstances that we don't like and that we don't want. much like he did in the case of his only begotten son Jesus when he was in the Garden of Gethsemane and sweat like drops of blood was falling from his brow. And in his agonies, Jesus said, Father, this is a bitter cup, and if it's possible, let this cup pass from me. Nevertheless, not my will, but let your will be done. And the point I'm trying to make is that if God allowed Paul to have pain and Jesus to have pain, don't you realize, child of God, that sometime God will allow you and me to face some painful experiences? This thing was sensually irritating, but wait a minute, it was satanically influenced. He said, a messenger, an emissary, a carrier of Satan himself to buffet me. That word buffet means to strike with the hand or the fist. And the tense of the word, pastor, suggests that it was not a one-time blow. No, it was a continuous blow. He said, every day this thing bothers me. Every day I have to live with it. Every day it hounds my footsteps. Every day it causes me to live in pain. And God allowed him to have it, and he describes it as being a messenger from Satan himself. Every now and then, child of God, God will allow the enemy to bring a set of evil circumstances into our lives we don't like and that we don't want and cannot fully understand. Much like he did in the case of Job, God permitted the devil to bring evil into Job's life. But the silver lining for me in the story of Job is that it suggests that Satan does not have free reign in the life of a child of God. And he seems to be limited as to what he can do. And the only way he can bring anything into your life is that he has to first get permission from God. And if God permits it, that must mean he can trust you with trouble. He said, have you considered my servant Job? Look at the scandal of that. It's as if God is seeking the devil on his own child. But God says, I trust Job with trouble. Yeah. But I can't stay there. I wish I could. The text is fluent, it's moving. There's another movement that comes right on the heel of the first movement. While a predicament is mentioned, we see next of all that a purpose is manifested. Paul says, there was given to me a thorn in my flesh, which suggests that this thorn, he said, was not something that I got by accident. No, it wasn't something that just happened to me. He said, no, somebody gave it to me on purpose. Somebody gave it to me with intentionality, which is to suggest that while my thorn is painful, it is a gift that was given to me. There was given to me thorn in my flesh. Kierkegaard said that pain is God's megaphone. That sometimes God can't get your attention when he gives you blessings after blessings. And we ignore him, but God said, I got a gift that'll get your attention. Sometimes he gives us the gift of pain in order to make us the people that he wants us to be. It was given. But why was it given, Paul? Paul tells us, number one, he said to remind others of his humanity. Watch what it says in verse 6. He said, I wanted to boast, I wanted to brag about it. He said, but I won't be a fool. He says, I will speak the truth, but I refrain, lest anyone should think of me above what he sees me to be or hears of me. You see that word think? Let church say think. The word think in verse 6 is a mathematical term. It's a mathematical metaphor that means to calculate. For you see, Paul had gone to the third heaven, had seen what nobody else had ever seen before. And Paul realized that other people looking at how blessed he was, they might have developed an over-calculated estimation of his worth. And so Paul said, in order to remind other folk that I'm just a man, there was given to me thorn in my flesh. Paul realized that sometimes we have a way of putting people on pedestals where only God belongs. When he and Barnabas were in Lystra, he healed a crippled man that had never walked before, and the people in the city